We were marched from here to the cornfield. The different companies at our regiment were placed around in different parts of the cornfield. Our company lay down flat to get out of the way of shells. We were here when we saw two regiments about half a mile off. They were rebels. They had our uniforms and flags, so we thought they were all right. But they came on through the cornfields, out of sight, very still. And the first we know, they were right upon us. They came onto our left flank of our company. We jumped up, fell back a little, and faced them. The officers told us not to fire, for they were our own men. They came on with a yell and a rush. Our captain was struck down, about the first one, by a musket ball in the thigh. As it strikes him, he cried, "Oh my God, I'm killed. Goodbye, boys. You have lost your captain. Farewell, farewell." Private Wells A. Bigham.
The Battle of Antietam, also known as the Battle of Sharpsburg, was fought in Sharpsburg, Maryland on September 17, 1862. It's the first major battle on Union soil, leading to the total loss of 3,500 plus men and over 22,000 casualties, a total shift in the climate of the war.
Certainly it was Lee's first effort to invade the North, to come into Maryland. And the Union checked them on that advance, possibly as far north as into Pennsylvania. And what his goals were he thought he would come into Maryland, which was a border state that had both Union and Confederate troops fighting for both sides out of Maryland. And Lee felt that he would be welcomed by thousands and get all kinds of new soldiers and conscripts in Maryland. And in Western Maryland, that's not really what happened.
A battle full of bloodshed, Antietam has given life to several major triumphs, one of the most substantial of which being the Emancipation Proclamation, being signed by President Abraham Lincoln on January 1st, 1863. The Emancipation Proclamation was a law freeing all slaves that were in the state of rebellion. Lincoln wrote the proclamation as a method of war.
Well, I think the big one that most people would point to would be a few days after the battle, Lincoln issued the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation,
freeing slaves in the rebellion states and letting them join the Union Army.
He had hinted at it before the battle, and several of his cabinet members said, well, if we issue it without a victory, it'll look kind of like a hollow thing.
The battle had also changed the Union's reason for fighting the war, along with public opinion of the war for better. Another significant triumph was halting foreign support to the Confederates, preventing an alliance between the Confederacy and countries like England and French, which could have changed the result of the war drastically.
The other big impact on the battle was really whether the European nations of France and England were going to recognize the Confederacy. Would they say this is a legitimate nation? Are we going to give them diplomatic recognition? And their defeat at Antietam they decided after that, no, they wouldn't.
About 4 o'clock, we were marched over a hill and down into a hollow and lay down. We were in this situation about half an hour. The shells from both batteries were playing over us. One man in our company, laying just beside me, was struck by a piece of wheel. Captain Monross was killed while we lay there.
The single bloodiest day in American history. 23,000 dead, injured, or missing soldiers. Entire units were lost as hospitals filled with bodies.
People say 23,000 casualties in a single day. Well, the majority of those casualties were not people killed outright on the battlefield. It were people that were grievously wounded who needed long-term medical care.
This battle showed the sheer damage this war would do to everything. The country, the people, the landscape. Nothing was spared in this battle.
Well, if you lived in that area, if you were from Sharpsburg, your community, your farm, your town was ruined.
And that shows, not only did it change the nation, but it changed the way the war was fought for the worse. No longer fought with swift victories and minimal loss. Instead, the war became a conflict of endurance and sacrifice. The question wasn't if they'd have enough men going into a battle. It was if they'd have enough men coming out to keep fighting the war.
What looks simple and on a two-dimensional map, and you wonder, why couldn't they coordinate these attacks? Why couldn't they see one another? And then you get there and see, well, there's this rolling terrain and hills, and you can't see one another and the distance between. And then you start to realize and understand, oh, now I understand why they fought the way they did.
Freedom isn't free. It's a simple yet powerful message, and it reflects well here.
The Battle of Antietam was a harrowing battle, full of suffering and loss. But out of the ashes of this tragedy lies a triumph.
It isn't just a battle. It's a story of how people, a nation, rose from the ashes
And made the United States a better place. The Emancipation Proclamation, foreign support to Confederates cut off, and so much more.
All of which happened because of Antietam.
So Lincoln announced, I believe, a few days after the Battle of Antietam, claiming a Northern victory, which was somewhat controversial, whether it was in fact a Union or Confederate victory or a stalemate.
In conclusion, the Battle of Antietam was a battle that ultimately changed history for the better.